Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
It's time for a fresh start to language learning. Pearson EdXL's new student-centred French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language knowledge, their assessments are transparent and accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills. Through inclusive and relatable content, the new Pearson EdXL MFL GCSEs build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. Find out more at go.pearson.com/MFL GCSE 24.
Good afternoon, EduFolk. I very nearly said good evening, but I had to remember that actually it's afternoon, not evening. I haven't spoken with you all in a while, but it's good to be here, despite the discussion we are having this afternoon. But I think it's a very important and necessary discussion to be having about the case of Sarah Mead. The results have come through, and well, let's see what you all have to say about it. And we're just waiting for Tom Rogers to join us, who is there and ready to go. I can see him. Fantastic. And we will be able to get cracking momentarily. Please do join in the discussion. It's very important. We want you to participate. We want you to be involved. And, I can see Tom Rogers is there and ready to go. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Rogers. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. And yourself?
Yeah, all right, thank you, despite our topic of discussion this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting one, isn't it? So, I was going to do this Monday night, but I just thought, that this deserved something now, because I feel like it's an issue that really sort of touches on a lot of the different challenges that teachers are currently facing, or certainly seem to be facing in schools at the moment. Just in case you don't know what we're talking about and you've just literally clicked on the link for this, I think it'd be best to maybe talk through just for 5 minutes what exactly this is all about. So yesterday, the government published a report into a tribunal around a teacher called Miss Sarah Mead, and a series of allegations were put to Miss Mead in this tribunal. The allegations were pretty serious. So just to sort of give you a rundown of those, on or around the 13th of May 2022, Miss Sarah Mead allowed pupils to use glue guns without adequate supervision, without a risk assessment having been conducted, and/or without 2 members of staff being present. Miss Mead admitted this allegation in full. The panel was satisfied that Miss Mead's admission was unequivocal and consistent with the surrounding evidence. Therefore, the panel found this allegation proven. And if we go back in the report, and by the way, this is available on the government website, you can find it very easily on Twitter. It's in the public domain. But in the section entitled Decisions and Reasons, the panel announced its decision and its reasons as follows. Meridian Angel Primary School is a one-form entry primary school in Edmonton Enfield. It's part of the London Diocesan Board for Schools and Academies Trusts. Miss Mead was employed by the school as assistant head teacher in June 2015. In September 2020, Miss Mead was promoted to interim deputy head teacher, and the following year took the substantive post. At the material time of these allegations, Miss Mead was also the designated safeguarding lead, otherwise known as DSL, and held classroom teaching responsibilities. So straight away, when I was reading this, I was thinking this is a high stress role. This is a tough gig. On the 13th of May 2022, Miss Mead was teaching a Year 6 class for the day. The pupils had completed their Key Stage 2 SATs test that week. The class was mainly undertaking art and design tasks in the afternoon, including creating characters for the school's library display. Miss Mead had split the class into 3 groups, and 2 of them were working on projects relating to the display. The class was split between the Year 6 classroom, a neighbouring breakout room, and the adjoining art room. Miss Mead rotated through the groups and was supervising them on her own. She did not have the support of a teaching assistant on that day. When we discuss this later, we'll certainly come back to that point because I think it's a very important one. One of the groups working on the art projects was using PVA glue to stick parts of the characters together that they'd made. Two pupils from this group approached Miss Mead with a glue gun they had obtained. Miss Mead told them not to use the glue gun and to keep using the PVA glue. When Miss Mead next returned to the pupils in this group, she found that they'd switched the glue gun on and they showed Miss Mead how the PVA glue was not working for the task. Having been shown this by the pupils, Miss Mead accepted the PVA glue was not effective and showed those pupils how to use the glue gun safely and allowed them to use it. Miss Mead continued to check on other pupils in the class as they were spread out in their groups. Just a little bit of an interlude there before I carry on reading. This to me is what I've just read there to me sounds like a very common situation that many teachers can find themselves in. That was my sort of feeling in my opinion when I read that part. It was a situation that I can just see in my mind's eye. Lucy, do you want to come in there?
I've been in this situation. I have been this teacher, and I think this is why this is kind of hitting so hard for me at the moment, because I could be the teacher in this position. I have used glue guns in primary school, and we've obviously gone through the necessary procedures and training to do that. But it's just the fact that this could be, and I'm sure there are primary teachers sitting here in the mix right now who have also been this teacher and done many projects. I mean, I've seen things like Stanley knives used with Year 6. I mean, obviously again with the appropriate training, but as we're seeing, things can go wrong, and I think it's just, I mean, this whole discussion is a lot of food for thought this afternoon.
I'll continue reading. It was almost the end of the day, and on returning to the groups with the glue gun, pupil A had now joined this group and was watching the other pupils use the glue gun. Miss Mead asked pupil A to return to his group, but he explained that he'd finished his task with that group. On later returning to the group, Miss Mead noticed that pupil A had started to use the glue gun. Miss Mead showed pupil A how to use it safely. Now, again, just to pause there, for me, this is one of those... I mean, I don't want to get into a debate here about group work and all that jazz around that, but this is one of those where it is a really difficult situation for the teacher to manage, because what's going on here is the teacher has multiple groups, multiple individuals in the room. And for anybody listening to this, maybe listening to it back, who's not a teacher or isn't involved in education, that's probably one of the toughest situations for a teacher to manage, where you've got multiple groups, you don't have TA support. We've already seen that in the report. There isn't another teaching assistant there to help the teacher. So essentially they are in their own. When their back's turned, anything can be happening. The teacher so far, up to what we've read so far, has given very clear instructions to the students. It's not as if there is ambiguity in any of this. There is a very clear, I need you to do this, I want you to do this. I'll carry on reading. As the children were packing up for the end of the day, one of the pupils told Miss Mead that pupil A had hurt himself. Miss Mead spoke to pupil A and in her evidence stated, this part's redacted, was reluctant to show her redacted hand and was covering it with redacted other hand. Another pupil then moved pupil A's hand, and Miss Mead could see there was a small single blister on the forehand. Now, that picture is available, again, in the public domain. I'm not going to link to the media organisation who have published it, but that picture was provided by the parent in this case. Miss Mead told pupil A to visit the medical room, but pupil A refused. Now, I think that's a really important line. I don't know what anybody else thinks, and I'm hoping to bring different callers in as we go through this, but it says here very clearly, Miss Mead told pupil A to visit the medical room, but pupil A refused. Now, to me, that's absolutely key. What my sort of, when I was reading this, I'm going, wait a minute, this boils down here at this particular moment to a student not following instructions. But yet the teacher is the one who's ended up at the end of this incredibly stressful, arduous, and damaging process. Anyway, I'll continue reading. Miss Mead told pupil A to visit the medical room. Pupil A refused. Miss Mead additionally told pupil A to go and run his hand under the tap in the nearby toilet. Now, again, I'd welcome any other opinions on this, but when I saw the picture, again, it's available on Twitter. You can look at it yourself. I'm just wondering, my immediate question was, how many times has this happened in the last 30 or 40 years? Probably a lot. That's been the reaction at that level of injury. We're talking about, and again, this is my opinion only, we're talking about an injury that is not as bad as an injury that a child could sustain on the playground on any given day. Right? Miss Mead was required to be on gate duty that afternoon, and as pupil A left the school to go home, Miss Mead told pupil A to show redacted hand to redacted mother when redacted got home. Miss Mead was then involved in a high-risk safeguarding issue with some other vulnerable pupils who had not been collected at the end of the day. This is where my rage was starting to build when I was reading this. Because, again, my view only, this is a teacher who has finished at the end of what was obviously a very stressful and tiring week as a deputy head teacher, DSL, and all these other things that she's having to do, SATs week, all the rest. And she's on gate duty, so she has to go there. There's another issue happening, which they describe in the report as a high-risk safeguarding issue. And as deputy head and DSL, presumably she would feel obligated to deal with that. In fact, it said that. She says, as she was dealing with this high-risk issue as the DSL until 4:30, Miss Mead was not able to deal with pupil A's issue straight after school as she would normally do. As a result, Miss Mead forgot to deal with pupil A's issues and follow the school procedures, such as contacting redacted mother, informing the head teacher, or recording it in the school's accident book. I'll be totally honest with you, and I'll be straight with you. Put me on the tribunal then, because there's been times where on a Friday afternoon, okay, maybe not on the level of what's being discussed here, but are you telling me that there haven't been times the last thing on a Friday where you've had a meeting after school on a Friday where you either forget something or you think, oh, do you know what, I'll leave that for another time, and then you forget about it? Listen, I challenge anybody out there to find me an experienced teacher who has not been in that sort of a situation. And I myself will hold my hands up straight away and say probably in the past. I can't think right now off the top of my head of a specific example, but I can guarantee you that at some point a similar sort of thing has probably happened to me. And what this is about is Miss Mead seems to be the unlucky one here. She seems to be the unlucky one. We'll come on to the media campaign and all the rest of it later. As a result, Miss Mead forgot to deal with pupil A's issues and follow the school procedures, such as contacting redacted mother, informing the head teacher, or recording it in the school accident book. Again, I'd love to know what people think, but when you look at that injury and you sort of imagine you're in that classroom, yes, you know that the right thing to do would be to do everything that's said in that report. But you know what? Teachers are human beings. And as I said, since time immemorial, the reaction to very minor injuries would be to try and deal with that in-house or, deal with it in the way that you think is best. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. The right thing to do is exactly by the book, exactly what is said on there. But what I'm trying to do is just paint a picture of a teacher in a high stress situation, trying their best, obviously, to deal with all of this, which just sounds like a mammoth task given the amount of stuff there is. Carrying on. when pupil A got home from school, redacted showed redacted hand to redacted mother. Pupil A's mother called 111 and was advised to take pupil A to a hospital, which she did that evening. The clinical summary sheet from the hospital's emergency department described the injury as, open quote, very small area of burn to the dorsum of its right hand, 2 tiny blisters, one is oozing, blisters debrided, burn is less than 1%. Impression, superficial burn. So obviously the mother, it then carries on. The panel had photographs of the injury taken by pupil A's mother before it, which were consistent with the description. And again, those are probably the ones published online. I don't know. The hospital advised that pupil A return in a few days to check for any infection. Pupil A's mother was subsequently told to treat the injury by taking over-the-counter pain relief medication and regularly applying Vaseline to the burn. At some point over the early part of the weekend, pupil A's mother made a post about the glue gun situation on Twitter and tagged the school in the post. Again, I'll pause there. Would love to hear comments on this, but I think this again touches on this issue of teachers now with Facebook, X, Instagram, particularly I'd say Facebook, X, and probably other emerging platforms. It is an issue here where, and we've seen it time again, people trying to get other people sacked, right? Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm going to apply this to this particular incident, but when I read that statement, it did again touch on some of the other instances and situations that I've seen on social media. The naming of teachers, the naming of schools, the naming of specific situations and so on, with the intention to go down a certain pathway. Anyway, I'll carry on. On Saturday, 14th of May 22, pupil A's mother called The Sun newspaper to report the incident. The paper subsequently ran a story under the headline, Sticky Issue, I'm furious after my burnt redacted hand at school using a glue gun. I didn't find out until redacted got home.
It's time for a fresh start to language learning. Pearson EdXL's new student-centred French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language knowledge, their assessments are transparent and accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills. Through inclusive and relatable content, the new Pearson EdXL MFL GCSEs build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. Find out more at go.pearson.com/MFL GCSE 24.
The panel only had a copy of the headline and the evidence before it and did not have a full copy of the article. Lucy, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think you're going to get to this, Tom, but I just want to draw your attention to the pinned tweet above, which is from Paul, who said, would the situation have gone to panel? And this is something that had definitely crossed, I think, all of our minds. Would it have gone to panel if the parent hadn't gone to the press before discussing the incident with the school? And I think this is going to form a huge part of where you're about to go. So I will be quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. Also on 14th of May 22, which is the Saturday, the IT department at the school raised a Twitter post with the head teacher, who subsequently emailed Miss Mead to ask about it. Miss Mead responded to the head teacher's email on the same day and confirmed that pupil A had hurt redacted with a glue gun the previous day. On Sunday, 15th of May, pupil A's mother emailed a complaint to the trust. On the return to school on Monday, 16th of May, events had picked up further pace. On arrival at the school, Miss Mead met with the head teacher to discuss the issue. Following the conversation, Miss Mead taught her morning class and made the required entries in the accident book during her lunchtime break. Pupil A's mother also attended the school to obtain further information, and the school started to receive press inquiries. The CEO of the trust emailed pupil A's mother to offer an apology and explain that an investigation was underway. Furthermore, the head teacher of the school emailed pupil A's mother. At the end of the school day, the head teacher had a conversation with Miss Mead, in which her position at the school and the situation was discussed, there was a conversation regarding the HR advice that was given regarding her role, which included that she consider resigning her position. Although Miss Mead was unsure of the situation and ramifications, she agreed to resign immediately. Now, this particular paragraph, I struggle with for a whole range of reasons. My first question was it right for HR to give advice that she should consider resigning her position? Was it right that the head teacher put Miss Mead in a position where she was, again, could have been pressured into resigning her post? And I suppose question C, was it the best thing for her to do to resign? There is that argument to say that by resigning, does that then mean that was the advice sort of, it'll go away if you resign, sort of thing? Again, I don't know. I'm just sort of speculating and throwing out questions. There's a lot of questions about this. One of the things that I thought about it when I read it was the idea of, like, teacher blame. That paragraph there, it rung out to me those sort of like alarm bells of, we just want to, we as a trust, a school, whatever, want to manage our way out of this. And I think for a lot of people from reading it have sort of said, shouldn't the first port of call be protect the member of staff? And I'm sure, I'm not saying the school or the CEO or the head teacher didn't do that, but from that paragraph, it doesn't come across that Miss Mead was supported in a way where the school and trust truly believed that this should be thrown out. It should be thrown out. Anyway, I'll carry on reading. On the 19th of May 22, pupil A's mother reported the incident to the police. Also on this date, she made a referral to the TRA, which I think is, Lucy, do you know what that stands for? Teacher Regulation Authority, is it? I think. On 22nd of May 22, she reported the incident to the Health and Safety Executive. During this week, pupil A's mother, who was unaware of Miss Mead's resignation, started an online petition and also an in-person petition collecting signatures outside the school to have Miss Mead removed from the school. Pupil A's mother subsequently started the process of bringing a civil claim regarding her redacted injury. Again, I'd love to, Lucy, go ahead.
See, this is where this whole thing falls apart for me and for, I think, a lot of other people. And I just also want to say that please do contribute to this discussion, because it's not just between Tom and myself, it is between all of you, because I think that this impacts all of us in the profession. This is, I mean, going back to the idea or the fact that Miss Mead resigned, my thought behind that was possibly, given recent things we've seen in the press, very sad instances of people taking their own lives and things like that, maybe that was what was going through her mind, in that she thought, I'm just going to walk away because that is the easiest thing to do. I wonder if in her shoes I might have just done the same thing, knowing what could possibly come down the pipe in my direction. Is it worth fighting when you know you are going up against the school, this mother, and everything else?
But that's where, Lucy, that's where for me, like, yeah, I agree with you if the school and trust aren't supportive. Because if they are, if they turn around and say, listen, we know all the facts, we know that you've potentially made a mistake, anyone can make a mistake, but you know what? We are fully behind and supportive of you. And the reason that, in my opinion, should have happened is it goes on in the report to talk about her record as a teacher, her record as a leader, her record as a person. It's unblemished. It's obvious that she is somebody who has been doing a really good job over a long period of time. You know, she's just your typical really good teacher.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's the bit where I agree with you, is that, you know, from a sort of legal HR perspective, there was probably that bit of sort of, hang on a minute, you know, this is going to bring up a whole load of issues. But from a school and trust perspective, they could have taken that advice and said, you know what, yeah, we understand the advice, but we're going to make very clear to Miss Mead that we fully back support her.
And that absolutely should have happened.
And
I'm not saying
that may have happened. We don't know what those
Yeah.
conversations were from the report. We're only we're speculating almost from this report as to what those
For
conversations
sure.
were, for sure. But equally, you know, the interpretation of what's written there, it's difficult to see it, isn't it, in any other way than what it's written.
Almost definitely. But I think that, I mean, saying that in the same position, I probably would have done the same thing. It doesn't mean it's the right thing. And it doesn't mean that she should have been driven to that, or that's the decision that she should have been made. And we don't know the advice she received. But parking that for a second and going on to this whole petition situation, this again is where I'm going to look back on Paul's comment where he sort of said, you know, had she, if this parent hadn't gone to the press or hadn't started doing this petition, when did this become a thing? And I don't know if it's since the social media age. I don't know if this is just people who have a vendetta. I mean, this mother, we don't really know anything about her because all that information is redacted. And so again, it'd be wrong to speculate. But how is it we live in a day and age where somebody can do that to somebody very publicly, very openly, based on one incident? I understand the upset, and I understand, you know, I would be mortified as a teacher, beyond mortified. But how we can arrive at a situation where this kind of, I don't know if you call it, it's not vigilantism, it's something else. It's pitchforks and that sort of thing. And what I want to understand is how on earth we have ended up here.
We've got David in. David, thanks for joining us. Do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, just listening in. It's really interesting. I mean, as a former head and someone who's followed up investigations for the LA, the thing that sort of strikes me, which is just the first page of the kind of complaints procedure, which doesn't seem to have been put into place. So just going back to your question there about sort of the pitchforks and the Facebook and everything else, if we're making it clear that complaints have to be funneled through the school procedure and not public, and that's explicit and that's on the website and everybody agrees that that's the right thing to do, then the school kind of holds the cards a little bit in relation to the next step. So I think then what we've got is that really that first form that the parent fills in says on it, what would you like the outcome to be? You know, and if the outcome, and there's a box to fill in, and that's it. And she submits that before the initial conversation. So what we're looking to see then really is it about retribution? And it is about retribution. It has become about retribution. It's become about public shaming. So I'm assuming I would look at this situation and ask why has the teacher decided to kind of give a resignation in? If you don't have those things in place at the school that you're at, then it's a very difficult place to work at. And if you don't have that kind of faith in the leadership and the management, and if you don't feel protected, because that's what we're sort of discussing there, you know, that there needed to be a level of protection. If those protocols are not clear, explicit, if those aren't in place, then why would you work there? I think that is probably where you would walk away and say, you know, it's a matter of time before it's one person another or it's me again. So I think there's a whole sort of level of things that I think could have been done that really could have kind of helped things. I'm not saying that, you know, when you've got parents with, with these kind of You know, they've got a right. They've got a right to complain. They've got a right to share their thoughts. But it has to be done in the right manner, doesn't it?
I mean, one thing we do know is misconduct will be on this person's record forever. Yeah. We also know we don't know what the specific advice was. We don't know if she was. We don't know why she was advised to resign. No. You know, if she was forced to leave and harassed into leaving, so they gave her no choice, then fair enough. But it doesn't sound like that from there. It sounds like advice was given.
You kind of would have to say that by her resigning, how is that a positive outcome? And I know, you know, when I say positive, obviously there's a context to consider. There's a child with an injury and those kind of things. But how is that a proportionate outcome? And I don't think it is. So I wouldn't have been willing to accept that resignation. I'd have challenged that, I would guess.
Well, that's what I was going to. My next question to you was going to ask, you know, and I know this is a very difficult one, but as a former head, you know, let's imagine that timeline of events happens. You know, it's interesting to get insight into the head teacher's role within this, in terms of what could or should a head do at each stage of the process. So I don't know whether you can sort of give any sort of insight on that in terms of what you or others may do in this situation, because it could happen again very easily, these similar things.
I mean, I think that again, it's kind of going back to those protocols being in place before, because it's not about the head, it's not about the member of staff in this instance, it's about any situation that you may have where these things can occur. So, I mean, my advice from headship, and one of the things that I learned sort of fairly quickly, was that you have to kind of put that policy in place. It's a really important one. And when you get the job, you may not feel like it's a priority. But if, you know, as we know, that these are the things that can occur, and so you do need it. And so I'd already, you know, sort of seen that was going to be a priority when I got my job. And I worked in a school with very sort of challenging circumstances where there were lots of possibilities in this respect. So I think I was always sort of comfortable and confident about how to manage things should they occur, having created the policy, worked with the governors to verify it, agreed it with the staff, and then knowing it sufficiently well to apply it when the time comes, and that sort of drastically reduces things. I mean, what you're looking to do at that first instance is take the heat out of the situation. So the minute that parent you're aware that parent is unhappy, I would be picking up the phone and saying, right, okay, my door's open. And then I would be civil and fair, and I wouldn't allow them to criticize the process. So I wouldn't allow them to be personal, criticize me or the school. Yeah. I would make sure that those things were very clear and very supportive. And so at the first instance, take the heat out of things. If that's not sufficient, and if it's clear that the parent is unhappy with the actions that you might propose, which would all again be explicit in the policy, then you're looking at independent support, aren't you, really, for the process, so that it can it's objective, really, I guess.
Would you have sort of fought back against any teacher who said, I'm resigning on the Monday? Would you have been like, hang on, like, don't do that? Like, let's just wait for it.
I would have been incredibly sad. You know, it's a colleague, and you know, we all know that there's probably not a person on this call and reading it. We all know situations where we could have been in that situation. You know, we all know whether it's a glue gun, whether it's a child falling off a climbing frame, whether or not it's a residential, whether or not it's it's not negligence, it's the element of risk that comes with doing things. So that's proportionate, isn't it? And that is, and going back to what I think one of the things that I'm seeing with this situation is there's a type of person presumably behind this from a parent point of view. So that there's things that we don't know because we're we're not party to those things. But when there is an agenda, and when parents, may feel this way, that's why we've got to kind of clarify whether or not it's about retribution. We've got to really make clear whether or not what a proportionate outcome would be, and articulate that and clarify that from the onset, and then work towards that. At no point, I would say, with this situation and the glue gun, that it would warrant somebody resigning who was a perfectly good servant to the school.
We've got Tuma calling in. I don't know whether you can unmute yourself, and please correct my name pronunciation if that is incorrect.
Yeah, hi Tom. No, you're spot on. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yes. I wanted to say I actually agree with what David was saying with regards to the procedures that the school should have in place with regards to complaints, because it looks like due to the media involvement, you've just skipped that, right? And it just looks like they've gone straight to a panel tribunal, and now we're at where we're at now, right now.
But the bit I didn't get was why. What the bit I didn't understand in it all was why it went to tribunal. I don't understand that bit. Like, the teacher's resigned. Is this because, like, what's triggered it to go further? Is that literally based on the pressure from the parent and the media and whatever else?
I think that's the case. I think the pressure from the parent and the media. It says in the report that the school found out that it was in the media through the IT technician, that they saw it on Twitter, and then they brought it to the head's attention.
Yeah.
So I think that's what led to the school wanting to also protect their reputation in the community, and also show parents that actually we are a school that values the safety of your children, because that's what's really at stake here. If, again, I go back to what David was saying with regards to handling things in-house, right? Which could have been done in this situation had the parent not gone to the media. But there's also another situation that stands out for me, which is that, we've got an individual here that is deputy head, DSO, and has classroom responsibilities. So it's high pressure. Unfortunately, we can't control the parents, right? And despite that being a high pressure situation, like, I've been there at times where it's, the teacher herself was at school till 4:30 dealing with another situation. And I've been there myself where I want to go home, but actually this email has to be sent. This record needs to be made. I'll stay to whatever time it takes to make sure that there's a record kept. And ultimately, I've made sure that I've covered myself. Do you see?
Yeah,
and the sad thing is, no matter how pressurized the situation was, we as educators, we have to endeavor, we have to find the wherewithal to make sure that we have crossed our I's, dotted our T's. And the first state, and there's several antecedents in this situation. The first antecedent is the fact that we've got a member of staff who's covering an arts and crafts lesson. She's put the groups into 3 across 3 different classrooms. That, for me, is the first situation that shouldn't happen. Support has to be given to her. And then there's a glue gun. For me, the child should not have been given the glue gun at all. But again, it's high pressurized situation. But after the burn has happened, then things happen. We must follow a procedure, because that means that
I think another really important point, which you haven't put in there yet, is that the teacher did give very clear instructions to from what we can read, to the student. So it's not as if there's been glue guns hanging around and it's almost like she's tried to not go. She's almost done. She's probably very tired on a Friday afternoon, and she's being hassled to use this glue gun, right? And there's probably that part of her that's just gone, you know what, I can't carry on fighting this. She hasn't, as you mentioned, got the support. But in saying all that, she has at least sort of made a very clear instruction to the child, which is like, this is how you do it, rather than just leaving them to it, which I think is a really important bit in there.
It is. It is. And I have to say that my context is secondary. And I have to say, you know, for me, if I see a burn on a child, I have personally, I have to take that child myself to the nurse. Whether I can say to the child to go to see the nurse, but if I see a burn, you know, I have to make sure that the nurse has seen that child, or I could say to the child, go and see the nurse, and then I have to make sure I follow up with the nurse at the very least and say, did so and so come and see you today with the burn? At the very, very least. Do you see? So that's me in a secondary context. So in a primary context, I think I would even leave that child to go. I would just make sure that I take the child myself or call someone to bring that child to the nurse because it's a burn. Do you see? That's where I come from.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt if we were to sit down with this teacher now. I don't know. I've never met her. I don't know who she is, but I'm sure that she would go, "Oh yeah, I made a mistake." In fact, she more or less said, "I made a mistake." And my sort of point is that any teacher out there in a high pressure situation on a Friday afternoon can make a mistake. Now, the level of this mistake, I think, is up for debate because I think the level of injury is important to consider here. I don't think we can, and I understand like the counter argument to that would be, and I agree with you, you know, we know what the process should have been, right? We get that, we know all that, but we've also got to sort of look at, we weren't in that classroom. We don't know how the child was acting. Were they sort of, you know, crying their eyes out, or were they laughing and joking? We don't know.
No.
We don't know. Do we? We don't know.
Tom, can I just mention as well there, sorry.
Yeah.
Just really interesting that you mentioned that, because one thing when I read the report this morning that I couldn't see is how it actually happened. Now, so there's no kind of reference to sort of the responsibility on behalf of the child, and it's year 6, so we're not, you know, we are talking about baby. Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like where is the you know, the question really to ask, how did the burn occur? Because looking at it, if you know, you would assume, and if this went to a court of law, I'm sure there'd be more thorough kind of insight required to look and say, how did it actually happen? Because the child knows. So so what the child is choosing to share, and what you know, we've got a bit of a selective kind of approach with regards to the investigation anyway when you read the report. So it's that again really sort of brings back how confident were the school initially in asking and proposing that the child has some accountability in the situation as well, because we know that it's very easy for children to go home, and it's very empowering to share things in a way which would where we could allude that to the fact that it's teacher misconduct, couldn't we? You know, we know that, and we've got to be ready for that in school, and we've got to counter that.
Does the fact, and I put this to Chuma and David as well, does this case sort of point to wider issues about responsibility and accountability because of the way that this case has managed to get to the point of yesterday where that report is being published? Like, it should never get that far. Surely, like you've just said, David, questions need to be asked of the individuals concerned and not just Miss Sarah Mead.
Yeah, it didn't need. I think you've mentioned really today about reputations, and I think that it just didn't. It becomes so. I mean, it was unraveling, wasn't it? So on the media, on the internet, and everything. If you know, we all know that if a parent has a complaint, they've got a right to complain. They need to come to the school and they need to follow the school's protocol. It's published, it's there, hand it over the counter, off we go. And then internally we can go from there. If those first things are secure and tight and well managed, then it doesn't need to escalate. But it's escalated really quickly. And it does look like a response to that escalation, doesn't it? Yeah, you'd have to read that report and say that really, you know, nobody's going to challenge the fact that we're talking about negligence here because it's already got to this stage and it's very clear. But in actual fact, there's some finer details really which haven't been addressed. And the first one, you asked me the question as a head, what question would you ask when somebody comes through the door? I'm going to go away and I'm going to find out from both sides. I'm going to get clarity on the situation. You don't act on things without both parties. And one significant factor of clarity required is, what was the pupil doing? What's the child doing? It has to be asked whether or not it's relevant. We have to know that.
Yeah. Chima, do you agree with that?
No, I can't say that I do. It's something to consider, but I'm trying to look at this as objectively as I can. And if we can ask what was the child doing, but I'll look at this again. The child had a burn. What was done about the burn? What was done in the aftermath? And one thing about Miss Mead is that you can tell she is a person of integrity, because she accepted the allegations wholeheartedly, everything. And it said that in the report, she said what she would do, what she would have done, what she should have done. Right? So Miss Mead already accepts what should have happened. And that's the thing. We can only control what we can control. We can't control anything external. But once those procedures which are put in place to protect all stakeholders, we have to ensure that they are followed. We have to. And my heart goes out to Miss Mead. They do. But at the end of the day, if I'm a parent of another child and this has come out, I want to know what is this school doing to protect or to ensure the safety of my child.
But Chima,
go on.
Let me just ask, because my first question was, why don't you think it's relevant or important as to why or how the child got burnt?
It is important how they got burned. It's important, but the procedures that have to be followed can put an end to the mum coming out and saying that this has happened in my school. Because then we come back and say, okay, this happened. We go back to the report. We see the evidence. This happened. It was logged. The teacher logged it. The nurse has seen the child. We've done what we have done. We've done what our policy says that we should do. So what and we have the policies for a reason. Yeah. Do you see? So it is important. But also, I think we must consider, since COVID as well, our children, with regards to how they interact with certain things. I have some kids that still can't use Pritt stick. They are still getting back to grips with socializing. So given them a glue gun, again, is a very high pressurized situation. What led, sometimes high pressure leads to us making errors in judgment.
You said that as a parent, your first sort of port of call would be to be sort of contacting the school or trying to find out how the burn occurred. But I tweeted earlier that if this had been my mum,
yeah,
she would have been, and she'd have asked me what happened, and she knew the facts of it. Now we don't know, which I actually agree with David. I still think that knowing that is important. I do actually think that's important to know why. But either way, the teacher has given an instruction, and the instruction, for whatever reason, has not been followed. If that had been my mum, she'd have been like, tough luck, you got to scratch, learn your lesson. Now I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's what my mum probably would have said. And I would have accepted that, because I would have been like, I was messing about. Like, I wasn't following instructions. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. We don't know the full facts. We only know that an instruction wasn't followed. We don't know why. We don't know what was going on in the room. Tom, you've got your hand up. Do you want to make a point?
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much to everybody who's been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. If you'd like to follow us a bit more, then please do go to our website, ttradio.org, and you can subscribe to the website there. Thank you. I've seen quite a few of those subscriptions have come in since the start of the space, so thank you to everybody who's done that already. I just wanted to make a few points about the case from the TTR perspective, just to add a little bit more context and talk about the unanswered questions and things like that. First of all, we have asked the trust for a response to this case. It is the weekend, so we haven't had a response, and it is also the summer holidays. So once we have heard anything from the trust, we will, of course, report that. Secondly, we had the point about going to the school nurse. It's worth noting from a national perspective that the number of school nurses in England, in the UK, has fallen by 35% in the last 5 years to around 2,000. That is research from Oxford Brookes University. And yeah, there's lots of unanswered questions. Paul asked what had happened to the teacher, whether they were still enrolled. We know that the teacher has resigned and is found work at another school as long-term supply, was very open and honest about what had happened in the previous school, and this was used by the TRA to her credit, and as far as we're aware, she's still teaching in this school. So yeah, those are just a few points that I just wanted to add there.
Thanks, Tom. That's really helpful. We've got Beauty. If you want to unmute yourself. Yep.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Tom, and Teachers Talk Radio for hosting this space. I remember when this case first happened, and like all of us have probably been following it, waiting with bated breath on what's going to happen. I personally think how it's escalated is completely disproportional to what's happened. And I appreciate the points a lot of parents make, like yourself, Chuma, but I just fundamentally think that it was wrong, particularly going to a newspaper like The Sun and trying to tarnish this woman's name. That's just something contextual I want to say. My actual point I want to make is that, as far as I'm concerned, this is the perfect case study for trade unions and what teachers are fighting for right now. I believe personally that the state that teachers are in right now is so critical and dire. The expectation for them not just to act in their role as teachers, but also valorize them as parents between working school days or being or seeing, all knowing, expecting them to go above and beyond. Like, I don't know if you read that report. She was rotating between, was it 2 or 3 classes? Like,
Yeah.
how do you expect someone in that capacity? And I'm not sure how many kids were in each of those classes, but for you to see everything and know everything. And in the report even says that she showed them how to use this gun safely. Right? It's
She gave clear instructions. She also, according to the report, tried to almost put them off using it, and she sort of tried to stop them using it, basically. But they, in that sort of thing, I've been there, not with a glue gun, but I've been there with situations where, and this is where we probably need a whole nother show on like group work and like all that sort of side of things. But if you're in a situation like the one you've just described, you have your back turned, you have multiple students to deal with, you have different kids coming up to you asking you for things the whole time. It's Friday afternoon, you're already knackered. You're probably doing an activity you don't really want to do. She's probably, but again, reading between the lines, she's probably not wanting to do this particular activity. I'm sure she's probably got a million other things she needs to do. So I just go on.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say that this is, as a unionist myself, this is a trade union issue. There's clear power asymmetries in this entire case. And I believe that, someone said before she had integrity, 100%. But this is clearly a power play. It could have been handled in-house. She spoke to her superior. It was understood. Cool, case closed. The fact it has to be escalated on a national level, for me, speaks to the fundamental issue right now on the expectations of workers, not just teachers, but across industries. They are not heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Beauty, thanks for your kind words about TTR. We're always trying to sort of bring these issues to the fore. It's quite a difficult one to talk about, but it's one that is very important. And I know next month we're going to have a show based around unions, the importance of legal advice. We're going to have EDAP who are in the space today on there talking about that next month. So there are going to be things in the pipeline where we will discuss the sort of debate around I guess, union membership, because it is, there are many people who don't believe in it. Not many, but there are some, and there are some who have, even those who do believe in it. Maybe a lot of them are losing faith, and maybe this case sort of highlights to them, again, sort of like the risks, I guess, of not having any sort of cover, whether that be legal cover, union cover, whatever. Yeah, Tom, go on.
I just wanted to add to your point, Tom, about the tiredness aspect of it being on a Friday afternoon. I think this was also the same week as they'd just done their Key Stage 2 SATs. So when you look at that aspect, that's just that just escalates things even further, doesn't it? In terms of, it was Friday the 13th of May, they just completed their Key Stage 2 SATs. I mean, the year 6 teachers in that school, considering she was a DSL as well, that peak tiredness. And I appreciate the points that have been made about whatever you have to do, you have to report things, you have to have a paper trail, you have to have made sure you've covered all bases. I think the particular context of this is very important as well. I've seen that Yasmin's in as well. I really want to hear from Yasmin.
Yasmin, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I've been listening to what everyone said, and honestly, there's there's things everyone has said that I really agree with. I think I'll just quickly start with the bit that Chuma said. I think the one thing I will say that isn't about the teacher, but about the child, is that I kind of agree with Chuma in that I would defend the child. Like, I think it's a bit dangerous to speculate about the child's behavior, and that it doesn't diminish the concern and outrage on behalf of the teacher. But at the same time, when I read this report, I just kind of couldn't believe what I was reading. So I just kind of looked into the background of the school, and I could see that a year before this incident happened, they had two, and I don't think I've ever seen this with a school, but they had 2 Ofsted monitoring visits in the span of 3 months in 2021, the first of which was 2 weeks out of lockdown. And I read all of the reports, all of the Ofsted reports, and it seemed to me as though this teacher, and it said in the article, it said in the panel hearing as well, that this teacher was an excellent teacher, and they were observed a lot by other teachers, clearly a really good example. I just kind of felt like, was this teacher put under this immense pressure? And I don't think I've ever heard of a DSL that is also a year 6 class teacher, and as Tom said as well, in SATs week, and it just sounds like this teacher was under a lot of pressure. And so the concern I had is, where's the collective accountability? Why hasn't the head teacher also been accountable for what's happened? Because head teachers also oversee safeguarding in a school. And another concern I had, which what Beauty said was, it's a bit of a power play, and I wonder, so not just the pressure that Ofsted put on this school and this, member of staff, Sarah Mead, but also what about the media and the role they play in the way that they denigrate teachers? What kind of precedent does that set for a parent's first thing to, do you know what I mean? Like, every school publishes their complaints policy on their website. And the whole point is, everyone in a school, I'm a teacher myself, but everyone acknowledges that parents are stakeholders. They're really important. They're the parents and guardians of kids, and it will be the case that parents and guardians have complaints, and that's why schools go to the effort of carefully and meticulously creating a policy and publishing it on their website publicly for anyone to find. And it makes me wonder, if you Google now complain about a teacher, which I did earlier today, like the Guardian come up, the Sun comes up, there's so many news articles saying how to complain about a teacher, and it breaks down all the steps for them. And I just wonder, is the way that teachers are treated by the media contributing to why a parent feels as though they can escalate something to like a national level?
Beauty, do you want to come in on that?
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly with Yasmin. Even teachers feeling they can't comment on the outcome of this case, that speaks to an issue within itself, right? Because this is clearly something that could happen to anyone who is a teacher at any point in time. And the fact that teachers don't feel safe enough to actually say, hang on a minute, in this instant, how would I have reacted? Or even just to defend someone that they share the same issues with, pressures with. The fact that teachers now, I mean, so many teachers are bravely calling it out, but there are also so many people I'm seeing speaking about it in confidence, speaking about it in circles, because they're scared of the repercussions of what could happen to them. And I think what Yasmin said is absolutely right in terms of the the influence the media play on it. Just creating a culture of fear, um, a culture of hostility towards teachers, because you have to understand ultimately what teachers are there to do. They are there to teach your kids, right? This doesn't take away from any of the other pastoral stuff that comes along with being a teacher. All very important, all very valid. And as Yasmin and Shuma rightly put, we can't assume what the children were up to or how they were behaving. There is no blame to put here on the teacher or the kids. But I do feel like the idea of power and sensationalizing this heroism of what teachers can and cannot do is really, really, really problematic. And it's the reason why there are no teachers left anymore. Teachers are leaving. Teachers are leaving. Teachers are scared. Teachers are killing themselves. I just think the entire case in the nicest way is just so messed up. And if any of you know if anything's been done for Miss Mead, like just for her emotional healing, um I don't know, for
Because
support, like it'll be really good
when
to know.
you, like Tom mentioned earlier, when you think about her career and
Yeah.
sort of, she's deputy head teacher, she'd obviously been in the school for a while, so she presumably, was sort of enjoying her job, and now, this has all happened. It's yeah, and I know Schumer's sort of commented in the chat as well. Chuma, you can basically say it, but Chuma said this is an extremely sad and unfortunate situation. Unfortunately, we cannot get too distracted with the actions of the parent. We can't control that. Again, I'm not sure I agree, Chuma. I'm very distracted by it. I'm very distracted. I'm raging actually by the actions of the parent. But yeah, I sort of, I wondered. I don't know whether you want to expand on that, but yeah, I get what you're saying. It's just that I find it really difficult to ignore the actions of the parent in this case.
Yeah.
Going to the son specifically, but other things too.
Yeah, and that parent knew exactly what they were doing by going to the son. They knew they wanted to sensationalize it. They wanted to critique teachers. They wanted to do all they could to tarnish this teacher's name and the school with a bad brush. Sorry. So for me, her actions are reprehensible.
Yeah.
For me, because if you really care about, that says to me that you're not really doing this for your child. You are doing this for maybe to get some money or maybe to get clicks or something. You're not really doing this for your child. So your actions for me are reprehensible. And the only reason I say I can't get distracted with it is because because I can't, because for me the policy is to protect against these reprehensible people. It's to protect against
no, I
that.
take your point 100%.
Yeah, so that's the point. That's ultimately why I was saying that, because Sarah's the victim here. The child is also a victim. He got burnt, but also Sarah's a victim, because this is now a blemish on her on her career. Do you see? And again, I think Yasmin alluded to this earlier, is that why are we in a situation where this person, one, has got occupying 3 roles, 2 is looking after a class with three groups. I don't really care if there's 2 kids in one group, or I don't know, but they're all in different rooms like that. Why, where is the collective responsibility, for Sarah? Why is she why is she in that situation? It's just asking for trouble, and it's an antecedent that again speaks to the profession, people leaving, high pressure, people having to do more roles than they can take on.
Yeah, and again, we can't sort of speculate, read between the lines, but just from my personal experience, it's highly unlikely that Sarah Mead sort of you know, at the start of Friday was going, I can't wait for the last lesson today when I'm going to have like X amount of kids in different rooms doing this with no TA support, you know. And she was already fighting a losing battle. Anyway, I'll bring in Yasmin, who has had a hand up for a while.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. You know, another thing that I really wanted to say is, you know, I just feel like there's been no thought given to kind of protecting this teacher at any level. Like, for example, I completely understand, like, you know, the Teacher Regulation Agency and the fact that they publish these panel outcomes. But if a teacher has been given no prohibition order, you know, there's been no like consequence, why is it then that, you know, her full name and everything about her will still be published? Like, you know, there were safeguarding changes made this year where you know, it's going to become normal now to Google a member of staff that's joining the school. And so, you know, I just feel like, where is the thought and concern for this teacher's future? And if this is someone who, you know, in that who's been credited in that report as, you know, being an outstanding teacher who, you know, has gone above and beyond, and, you know, this was, you know, an unblemished career, I think, to quote it directly, you know, but what about now in the future? Because, like, if, you know, if I use myself as an example, like, if anyone's like followed me on Twitter, I had a tribunal when I was in NQT, which was fully funded by the union, where I was essentially a victim of discrimination. But, you know, before it went to trial, I was given the choice. Like, I knew that by going to tribunal and not taking a settlement, it would be something that would be, you know, on public record and published. But like, I had that choice. And, you know, I understand that not every teacher that's referred to a misconduct panel can have the choice, especially because if anyone's read any other misconduct panels, there are some, like, you know, seriously bad things that has happened in, you know, the teaching profession affecting children and also other adults. But, like, you know, in this case, if there's been no order made, is it really in the public interest to have her full name published? And, you know, what effect will that continue to have? You know, when I read it, I couldn't believe that she was still in teaching. I guess this was before it was published, but now, you know, how many people have come across this? And also, any future students she teaches can also read this. So, you know, I feel like there hasn't really been much thought given to how she's supposed to go on in the future. And actually, and the last thing I was just going to say, sorry, Tom, is also it affects the confidence of all teachers. I think the reason why, you know, this has gone viral is because it resonates with everyone. And as you've mentioned loads of times, Tom, it could be anyone. You know, every teacher could be in this position one day. And, you know, I'm sure loads of people have kind of thought about their own lessons or going back to school in September and thought, you know, what can I do differently? Like, I'm a science teacher, and, you know, I've been thinking about what practicals should I avoid. And I think a lot of people,
and design technology,
it's scary. Like, and teaching is already hard enough, but now loads of people are scared and their confidence has been diminished by this.
I mean, it sort of, and again, please stop me, Yasmin, if you want me to, but it did make me think of your case that you've just mentioned, and how, you know, just speaking in general, there is that element, and for me, reading the report, it made me feel like it was the easier option for everyone if Sarah Mead just gave up. You know, that's just my opinion.
That's exactly that. Yeah, I think school is a very hierarchical place, and I get that she was a, you know, deputy head, but even still, you know, ultimately it was the only person who would have kind of been above her in the order of the school that basically had a quiet word with her, and, you know, that contributed to her then immediately resigning.
It spoke to me a lot about, like, the power of leadership in terms of supporting teachers, backing teachers, given, you know, it spoke a lot about, like, it hit me inside around that point of when people have a choice to make and it's like, this is the crunch moment, this is the one, it's not the easy one, it's not the one that's like, oh, you know, should we have extra cutlery in the canteen or not? No, this is like the one. This is the one where the choice is to, like, support, back, absolutely go to war for the teacher if absolutely necessary, or not, or to actually go, you know what, it's much easier if you just walk away now. Now, we don't know. We aren't privy to any conversation that's taken place. We don't know what's gone on exactly, but that was sort of the questions I had. Anyway, Jamie's called in, so I'll just hear from Jamie. Go.
Hi, Tom. I just wanted to say something. You know, when you sort of toy with, do I say something or not? Because I don't want to draw unnecessary attention to Sarah when, as colleagues have said, you know, she's going to have a career and try to move on at some point. But
what worries me is the bigger picture of what's happened in terms of, to me, it's reading the press and reading what's online, but it just feels like a witch hunt. My understanding is that she made a mistake. This all happened on a Friday, I think. She went home. She got an email on the Saturday, I think. It said in the paper, and she replied immediately. So over the space of a weekend, it had gone from 0 to 100, and she accepted full responsibility for her actions. She accepted mistakes were made, and there should have been accountability, no doubt about that. But I think what worries me as a head teacher is this culture of parents that are unhappy with either rules, with mistakes that happen, to then go from just having a conversation, dealing with it in a sensible manner, to actually going to the press, starting a
Yeah.
petition that says "Get Sarah Mead out." That if you
Hanging
look at
around outside the school.
Yeah, look at this parent's Twitter feed. It's just about Sarah Mead, and it just feels to me like a witch hunt. And I just think there's a big worry in terms of the culture that's been created, particularly post-COVID. I have to say that where parents have gone beyond simply just complaining to the school or to raising issues, but to actually this culture of I'm going to go online, I'm going to use social media, the press, and any channels I have available to really vilify teachers who are sometimes making genuine and honest mistakes.
Yeah, I think you've made some really powerful points there, Jamie, and you spot on, in my opinion. Tom, I don't know whether you want to come in there on anything that's being said.
Yeah, I was going to add just before Jamie came in that the parent did set up a Twitter account in 2022, which has been used exclusively to attack the teacher, to share a petition calling for her to lose her job, even though she'd already resigned, and tagging in Ofsted and other authorities into sort of those posts as well. I've also got a comment from a head teacher who's gone through the TRA process themselves, who says, "I believe that most are failing to see how deliberately this report has been written. They could not say it's been a waste of public money, given that it got to panel level. An outcome of sorts had to be given in order to justify the work, inverted commas, that the TRA put into the case. It's a disgrace, but not a surprise." The other point I'd make, of course, is about the role of HR in all of this. We have to remember here as teachers that HR ultimately is there to protect the employer, not the employee. And that's why it's important to seek third-party neutral advice, whether that's from legal advice or whether that's a trade union. It's really important to have that third-party advice, because HR is not there to protect you as an employee, it's there to protect the employer.
Oh, really, really good comments. Yasmin, I don't know whether you've got anything on the back of anything what Tom or Jamie have said to add, or anyone actually.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add, honestly, I was going to say what Tom just said, like HR, like I'm not surprised that teacher sounds like, she wasn't able to get HR advice that would kind of help her or protect her. And I think, the school it sounds to me like, they were in a really desperate position, or that teacher was just really shocked to find, that parents were standing outside, that, there was a news article about her over the weekend, like there was a petition made about her. I don't doubt that this teacher probably would have seen all of those things and felt like, just felt really lonely in that moment, and felt like she kind of had no other choice to resign. And when it comes to, and I've seen a lot of teachers as well today talking about union membership and how important it is, and I do completely agree. Union membership is really important. I've benefited massively from it, and off the back of the support that I got from the union, I've dedicated a part of my career to always being a union rep. So I've been a union rep for almost all of my career, just not my NQT year. But the one thing I would say about unions is you actually don't get legal advice that quickly. It takes a really long time. And, I do wonder, had that teacher contacted a union on that day, I mean, maybe she did, but it takes months, and it is really difficult, and it's really, really stressful process. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers, especially when they have, children, they've got dependents, or they've got a mortgage, or, they've got bills that they have to pay. A lot of teachers just, the only option that they take in that kind of moment of desperation is, well, I'm just going to leave, I'm going to take this on the chin, and I'm just going to try get a job elsewhere. And it's really sad as well that, teachers are always in those really difficult positions. I just think it's really sad. I think there isn't enough support for teachers. unions, in my opinion, are the best source of legal advice for a teacher, and I would strongly encourage everyone that's a teacher to join a union. But a lot of the procedures are really slow and take a really long time, and I just think there isn't enough support on any level for teachers in schools, and it makes that a really unsafe environment to work in.
Yeah, some really powerful points again, Yasmin. Thanks. Emma's here. Emma, our former host. Good to hear from you, Emma. Do you want to come in with something on this?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but one of your speakers earlier mentioned how many teachers feel reluctant to speak out because obviously we all know that everybody's watching us in our job. So speaking as someone who's left the profession after 21 years, I just wanted to add my voice. And this case is really tied into things that I've written about before in relation to school trips, where you're in loco parentis 24 hours a day. And this idea that for something so minor, this teacher has faced losing her job, potentially losing her career. And I'm genuinely speechless. And if anyone is wondering why experienced teachers are leaving the profession in droves like myself, they should read this case, because the older you get, I just felt I could no longer cope with what might happen. The older you get, perhaps it's because you see and read about more cases, but also I think you become less robust and less able to think, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine, which I think you do when you're younger. And I found I just hit a wall as I hit middle age, that I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't face the what ifs. I can't face thinking about what decision I should make when every parent would make a very slightly different one. And the responsibility just genuinely felt too great.
Jamie, I know you're a head teacher. I don't know whether you have any sort of comments on what Emma said or anyone else has said in the last sort of 5 minutes or so.
No, just agreeing with really, Tom. I think there's a much bigger picture, as I said earlier, than just this particular case. I think there's some really serious considerations that the sector needs to think about in order to protect teachers and keep them in the profession at a time when we can ill afford to lose them. And I think it's making sure that unions and I suppose the organisations that are there to support teachers are really prepared to stand by them in the absence of what appears to be some schools standing by their staff.
Yeah. Beauty, do you want to come back in again?
Yes, thank you so much for all the points you've all made so far. I just want to talk about the precedent this sets moving forward between between staff and parent relationships. How then do senior leadership speak to each other? How then do teachers navigate these type of relationships if then it's not just senior management who are technically your bosses, but parents too? I'm wondering, is there an understanding with parents that actually we're on the same side here? Ultimately, both of us have the same end goal: to educate your kid, to safeguard your kid, and do it in the best possible way ever. And I'm just wondering what conversations need to take place in schools between staff members, between staff members and head teachers, between staff members, head teachers, and parents, to mitigate any of this ever happening again, and all of this being weaponized by the media. I'm open to any thoughts.
Oh, it's a really good point. And, I'll bring Tuma in next. I know he's got his hand up. But I just wanted to throw in there as well. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with this, but the whole idea of body cams for teachers, actual cameras in classrooms, I've seen a few people mention it. I've seen. What I'm asking is, I think Lucy's given me a thumbs down, Beauty's given me a thumbs down, and certainly it's not something I've ever been in favour of. However, this case and others like it, and it brought back memories of the videos of the teachers. A few months ago, there were various videos of teachers recorded in lessons, and they were posted by media outlets, and then there was a huge pile on those teachers, and and it was really bad to see that. So it brought back memories of that.
So I don't know what the answer is. But Tuma, do you want to come in? I know you've got your hand up next.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I just wanted to touch on a point that Beauty and Yasmin made with regards to union involvement. And yeah, I do think that this is a good case to advertise and promote more union involvement. However, I'm trying to think hypothetically, what would I've wanted the union to do in this case? And I think one thing the union can't do is they can't absolve you of what you have done, for example. So, for example, Sarah Mead has accepted what's happened, right? She can't be absolved of that. But I would like to think that the union can help carve a way forward that make sure that in the aftermath of what has happened, that Sarah still keeps, her integrity, that maybe that this doesn't really go on her record, because at the end of the day, like what Emma was saying, it can be classed as a minor issue. So I think there were about 3 or 4 other reports that were published at the same time, and I read them all. And there was there were 2 cases that stood out. One was a guy that he was caught with indecent images of children, right? He was prohibited from teaching. Yeah. Then there was a case of another woman who forged or gave the wrong grades, right? She was dishonest. She submitted grades, said that she had moderated the grades before a certain timeline, but then it was proved that she lied, right? She was also prohibited. I think these are the cases that need to be made public, right? But I don't think Miss Mead's one does, actually. Do you see? So I think what I would like the union to do, if they were to get involved in this, if they were able to carve an avenue whereby they can control what happens in the aftermath of a situation like Sarah Mead's, where she's got a case, but then in the aftermath of her accepting what's wrong, she can still teach. She can still go about and help enrich the lives of these young children, But that's what I would want the union to do. And I don't know if that is a possibility. Maybe somebody else can speak on that, if they can do that, if that is possible, if avenues exist to make that a possibility. I don't know, but maybe somebody else can.
Tom, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to say, Vic Goddard made a very interesting point about how ever since MPs were crying to Ofsted about the Catgate incident, there's been sort of a culture of people trying to basically inflame things far beyond where they need to go, especially since Ofsted did inspect that school and found no evidence of any students identifying as a cat. The other thing I wanted to point out, of course, is that Teachers Talk Radio is brought to you in association with Pearson Excel, their new student-centred French, German and Spanish 2024 GCSEs cater to the needs of all learners, regardless of their background, ability or reason for studying. Rooted in learned language knowledge, their assessments are transparent, accessible, allowing all students to showcase their language skills through inclusive and relatable content. The new Pearson MFL GCSEs build a shared cultural capital that helps students develop an understanding of and appreciation for the wider world. You want to find out more, go to go.pearson.com/MFL. Back to you, Tom.
I just want to go. I know Yasmin's got a hand up again, but before we go to Yasmin, is it Bar? Apologies, correct me.
Correct. That's
brilliant.
correct.
Bar, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I do actually. I wanted to comment more so as a parent. I actually haven't heard of this a Sarah Mead case at all until yesterday. Someone put it on Twitter, and it really shocked me because as a parent teacher, I was shocked at how if you compare what happens to you as a parent, like years ago, my son was in year 2, he was left unattended, but his top lip was busted and he needed stitches. It was really, really bad. And I could have made a really huge deal about it, but the relationship I had with the school had made such a huge difference. The head teacher had called me in really quickly. They had apologized, put their hand up, said what they were going to do. And that relationship for me as a parent calmed me down as opposed to going another different route, because initially I was livid. But I wonder the importance of also developing a relationship with parents, because that level of trust that is very, very important. And also I've seen in my career where teachers were not protected, and I sometimes think it's due to training, a lack of training from senior leaders, or just a lack of empathy or lack of understanding, or this essence where everybody wants to cover their own back, but they forget they also need to protect and create a safe school and safe place to work in for the teachers. So when I read this, I was really, really shocked. And thinking of, as a parent, I just thought, I mean, there is no way you could take your child into school every day, trust your child within a school, but when something happens, how low is the trust in the school that you've been taking your child to for whatever number of years, that you can't see, okay, something has gone wrong, something has happened, how do I help this school make better decisions or to ensure this doesn't happen to another child? But that relationship is really important, and I wonder what we could do as a profession to not only build the trust but also strengthen the trust both ways. As a parent, I'm quite conscious of how I would do that as well.
Yasmin, do you want to come in next?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I wanted to respond to what Chuma said about unions. I think I wanted to respond to what Chuma said about unions, but I get that, and I think I was saying this earlier as well. I get that every kind of case is published because, you know, there are certainly, and I think I mentioned this earlier, there are certainly, you know, as Chuma pointed out, some hearings that are, you know, really serious where there has been a lot of problems. I think what the union would have done, Chuma, is they would have given that I think that if a union had been involved, I think what would have happened or would likely have happened is they would have been the people to speak to the head teacher rather than the deputy head directly herself. And they would have in that moment been able to put that deputy head teacher first in that situation and either, you know, protect her employment there and things like that. So they would have given her, you know, really timely advice. I think I could see that I was tagged in comments by Adapt as well, who are in this call. And I know that, you know, some unions are better than others in the sense that some of them would give you legal aid straight away. So I think that's what they would have done. I don't think they could stop the TRA from publishing that hearing, that panel outcome, because all of them are published. However, you know, I think it does raise an important point. And I was also saying this earlier. I think when there's a case that a teacher hasn't received a prohibition order and has remained in teaching, is there, you know, good grounds to kind of protect them from that being published? And also to respond to what Beauty said earlier, and also what Bar has, you know, really alluded to as well. I think there was a time once, I won't really go into detail, but there was a time once that I represented or advocated for a parent where a really similar thing had happened. I didn't know the parent, I didn't know the child, I didn't know the school or the teacher, but it was a really similar incident that happened in a science lesson. And because I was a science teacher, this parent reached out to me, and I essentially just kind of mediated between the parent and the school. And, you know, when I spoke to the head teacher, I made a request that it was dealt with confidentially, and that, you know, it wasn't just the classroom teacher who was given, you know, disproportionate blame. And it was resolved really well. The parent was happy, the school was happy. And initially, before I got involved, the parent had actually been planning to put it on social media. And there was even a Zoom call where, you know, loads of just random members of the community had kind of listened and shared their outrage about what had happened to that child. But in the end, there was a good outcome. And, you know, since that time, when I read this, it kind of reminded me, but, you know, it just kind of made me think about what can be set up to form a bridge between, you know, parents and teachers as collective important stakeholders in children's lives. Can there be, you know, a third party that exists when parents and schools are at loggerheads, or, you know, to kind of protect teachers but also protect parents and protect children? Because, you know, it is really scary to that a parent can just contact the TRA. And, you know, I don't know too much about the TRA. I have read other panel outcomes before, but do they investigate every complaint that's made? And if they don't, like, what's their criteria? And do enough teachers know about it? Because I, for one, would really like to know, you know, what are the options if you are reported to the TRA? Like, what is the threshold that has to be met? I don't think that's something that enough teachers know about. I certainly don't myself.
Yeah, I mean, again, really good points. It's interesting as well, again, just to throw this out there, from my perspective, is a lot of the sort of the surrounding narrative of this sometimes paints it as though Sarah Mead has caused the burn or done it, or done it. Like, she was there, but that's it really. So I don't know. I find that side of it interesting. Sort of seeing a lot of the commentary online, and I don't know. I like I said at the start of this whole discussion, I feel like Sarah Mead was in a position that so many teachers can be in. So many teachers can be in that position, and who is to say that and all of us can sit here right now and say, I'd have followed the procedure, I'd have done this, I'd have done that. You don't know that until you're there, and until you're in that high stress situation, until you'd like to hope you would. You'd like to hope you wouldn't make a mistake. You'd like to hope you wouldn't say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Teachers are human beings. Teachers are human beings. Human beings make mistakes. This one, for me, should have, and this is personal opinion again, should not have got anywhere near the tribunal. It's a mistake. Yes, she's acknowledged it was a mistake very quickly after it happened. We don't know the full details of whether she was, how exactly the resignation came about. But yeah, on the initial, that Friday afternoon, reading that report, it just reminded me of so many Friday afternoons in my career. Not necessarily in terms of what happened, but just in terms of the feeling of Friday afternoon, the feeling of tiredness, the feeling of, oh my God, I've got to get through this afternoon, no matter what, and I've got to push myself and get to the bell. We don't know what her personal life is. We don't know what, and we shouldn't speculate on that. But what we can say is everyone has a personal life. Everyone is allowed to have a bad day. We don't know what stress she may have been under, or why she needed to get home on Friday, or why, this particular parent chose to, and again, this is my interpretation on it, target Sarah Mead. We don't know any of these things at this moment in time. Does anyone want to throw any, Chuma, I don't know whether you want to comment on anything I've just said or anything that you've heard in the last sort of 10 minutes since you last spoke.
Yeah, no, I agree. With a lot of what you said, it's just a very unfortunate situation, and I don't think, that this warrants, going to tribunal. The big media attention that it's got, I don't think it warrants that at all. I think it could have been dealt with in a much better way. Unfortunately, now we've got a situation where this parent has now tarnished the school, and her actions have now resulted in a professional with an impeccable record now having a blemish that's going to be on the record for the rest of their career. There's just, I think there's a lot to learn from what has happened, and if we can forge new ways forward, like with regards to how we deal with these things in the future, I think hopefully we can get to a place where tomorrow, if it was to happen again, then there can be different, more favorable outcomes, that favor good teachers, because we are short of teachers. We're short of teachers, and we can't afford to live in a place where we're charging teachers out or chasing them out of the profession. It's one of the reasons why I left UK, because of it, and we just can't afford to just be in a situation where good teachers are being tarnished, and prospective teachers are afraid to get into the profession because of stories like this. Because this,
or even like what Emma said earlier, even just scared to say anything on social media about anything. It's
unbelievable.
Like, hang on, like, we're professionals. Professionals are allowed to have a voice. Professionals are allowed to have an opinion. You don't have to agree with it. But one thing for sure is there shouldn't be a persecution of someone because they have an opinion. As a professional, it's a professional opinion. Beauty, I don't know if, just going back to what you said earlier, Beauty, about sort of the relationship between parents and teachers and schools and that. And we're coming towards the end now. We'll maybe last 5 minutes. If anyone else, by the way, wants to call in and share their thoughts in the last 5 minutes, feel free to do so. Beauty, I don't know whether, like, what is the answer for you then to offer perhaps protection on all sides, particularly for you know, we're talking about this particular case, so protection for individual teachers, I guess, would be first. But what is your, like, does there need to be more, I don't know, like legal protection so the media can't, I don't know, do what they've done in this case? I don't know.
I think it's very it's very, very tricky again, because what I fear is adding just even more uh power asymmetries, if you will. For example, if you were to bring things in a legal protection light, how would that play out? You know, who would be accountable to ensure those things get honored and they don't get leaked, you know? I don't agree with body cams. I mean, just look to the police and see how that works. Um, I would say, I don't know, maybe we can learn from other countries. I don't know how kind of like parent associations work. I know in the States they have them set up. Is there a way for them to exist where parents can voice their grievances in a way and in a space that's uh um listened to by senior management and teachers directly? But also, I strongly agree with everything Yasmin and Chuma echoed. There does need to be unions. Um, um, so I think there is no wrong and right answer. I think there's space for all of those things to work, bar the body cams. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a really sticky one, and I'm sure it's one that generations of parents have been going through. And I think, just to make another point, it's not just about parents, because you have to understand many of these kids will not be coming from nuclear families. You know, I'm a carer myself. I look after my young cousins in a very guardian way. I
Yeah.
represent them in many different ways. Um, and if it was brought in a legal way, what standing would I have if it was to go to tribunal? You know, then it's a case of me having to prove my relationship to this child, blah, 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 blah. So it's just many things at play here.
Yeah, absolutely. That sort of brings us to the end of our chat this afternoon, I think, which has been just so interesting. Massive thanks to Jamie, to David, who both talked earlier, Beauty, Tuma, Emma, Tom HB, Lucy is administrating on behalf of Teachers Talk Radio behind that beautiful logo of ours, and everybody else who was called in. Yasmin as well made some really strong points. This show, as always, is brought to you in association with our wonderful partners, including Pearson MFL. If you want to find out more about that, you can visit our website, ttradio.org, and you can click on the blog page and you can find our past shows discussing the relevance of language learning, which are really interesting. I highly recommend that for a bit of summer listening. Also, you can follow Teachers Talk Radio on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Play or wherever you get your podcasts from. This will be published as a podcast, so if you think it would be something that people would find useful to listen to, certainly it's been very useful to me, because I think, I'm still teaching history. So for me, it's really good to hear how difficult situations can be navigated. As I say, next month, we're going to have lots and lots of shows coming up around unions, around the legalities of processes, and the different things that teachers can do to get through situations like this or similar to this, or the sort of difficult situations that I'm sure they're going to be facing over the next academic year. So huge thanks to everyone again, and we'll tweet out a link to the podcast version of this when it's available, but you can actually also just click on the play button on this particular link once we finish, and the recording will be there available to listen to anyway, but that's only through X, so not through
your podcast providers. So thanks very much, everybody. And we will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. On the weekly review. That's available through our YouTube channel. So if you want to see some faces, then you can do that. It's hosted by Tom, who was on the space earlier. That'll be at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning live on the YouTube channel and via the Teachers Talk Radio X feed. So thanks very much, everybody. And we will speak to you soon.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.